Welcome everybody. In this lesson, we're going to be specifically focusing on the inhale phase of our breathing. This is where we're going to be activating the most important muscle in relationship to the inhale phase, that muscle being the diaphragm. Now let's talk a little bit about this muscle, kind of where it's located on our body and what is the purpose of it. So the diaphragm is a dome-shaped muscle that sits right below the lungs. So if you follow your rib cage and you make this lowercase n, we're going from the lowest rib to the bottom of your chest bone down to the other side of the low rib here. You're going to find the diaphragm sitting right in this area here. Now the purpose of the diaphragm is to draw in air. It is literally the only reason why we can inhale, because the diaphragm is contracting, and when it contracts, it flattens or lowers. Every time that it flattens or lowers, it pulls down, creating a vacuum effect. So if you guys ever seen a syringe, it kind of acts just like a syringe acts, where you pull the syringe and it sucks in fluid or it sucks in air. The diaphragm's doing the same thing. So now that we know what the purpose of the diaphragm is and where it's located, we can now start to become more aware of it in the process of inhaling. And that's exactly what this video is going to cover. How can we activate our diaphragm, become very aware of it, draw in air, follow that air from our nose into our throat, down into the base of our lungs, using that air to lift us up, creating space in our body from the inside out, allowing our spines and our joints to feel that decompression. That's something I want to highlight here. The breath, as we stated, does much more than just pull in oxygen and blow out CO2. The breath can be used to create internal space, but the only way we know this is if we're aware of it. So in this video, there's the education piece. Now you guys are aware of how you can subtly use the breath to really almost float your system, float your spine, stack your joints, create better alignment, and help decompress your spine. The reason that I want you to focus so hard on this in the beginning is because most of our stress and tension in our lives is due to our flexed pattern, meaning we're in this contracted state where our core is very tight, our shoulders become rounded forward, our heads almost lean forward as well, and that creates a lot of shallow breathing. So I want you guys to try something here for a second. I want you guys to go into this flex position, and I want you to try to take the deepest breath you can. Now I want you to come into slight extension where your chest is almost out and you're sitting straight, and take another deep breath. Right. You can see in which position you were able to take a fuller breath. When we're contracted in this flexion type state, it's because we're in this go, 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 fight or flight, stressed out state. And when we're chronically in that state, our bodies will mimic what we're chronically doing. So if we're chronically having this posture where we're tight and we're stressed and we keep reinforcing that, our bodies will fall into that position. So the key for this is to utilize the breath to lift us out of that flexed forward position, creating more space in our body for breath. When we can pull in more breath, we can pull in more oxygen, and we can help detox the body, we can help reduce stress, we can help reduce migraines. Again, the list goes on and on for how powerful the breath is. So with that being said, let's do a quick overview of what this video is going to look like. We're going to break the breath up into 3 parts: belly, chest, and head. We're going to follow the breath as it takes the journey in through our nose, into our belly, and then reaches the top of our head. We're going to then change positions where we're lying down, seated, and standing, and we're going to feel how the breath acts differently in those positions. But essentially, the main goal out of this whole video is simply to get you to connect with your diaphragm, follow your breath from your nose down into the base of your lungs as it rises to the top of your head, and feel how it can lift you up with the inhale. With that being said, let's get right into it. All right, so the how-to of deep diaphragmatic breathing, also known as belly breathing. And the reason it's known as belly breathing is because when the diaphragm drops down and we actually contract and activate the diaphragm to its fullest potential, it will drop so far down that it starts to naturally raise the belly. And I want to make note of this too. This is not something you have to learn. This is something you have to relearn. And I want you guys to realize this, that you already inherently know how to do this because you were born with the ability to do it. In fact, when you were a baby, until you reached the state of your life where stress started to accumulate and we started to fall into that flexion state, you were breathing through your belly. All babies know how to breathe in the correct way. As you get older, life becomes more stressful, And when it becomes more stressful, we stop breathing in our belly and we start breathing into our chest. So if you ever look at a baby, you'll notice how they naturally breathe from the belly. And it's a very soft rise, and the belly comes out and the breath flows into the chest as it should. So we're going back to the basics. We're going back to what we already know how to do. And I hope that helps with this process so you don't get overwhelmed with it. You already know how to do it. We're just trying to relearn. And I say this because I teach a lot of people how to breathe, and there's a sense of discouragement sometimes because they feel like they've been breathing wrong all their life. It's not that you were breathing wrong, it's just that you weren't able to activate the diaphragm to its fullest potential. And that's what we're about to do right now. So I'm going to turn sideways so you can really see what I want to show you guys. So you can get a better view of my belly here. Let's first demonstrate what does a belly breath look like compared to a chest breath. So with our belly, we're going to lift the shirt up so you can really see this here. When I do a belly breath, I want you guys to watch my belly here. Right? My belly's rising first, meaning I'm initiating the breath with my belly. Now, I didn't take a full breath. I only took about 25% of my inhale because I wanted to show you that the first 25% of that breath is going to start in the belly. Now, this is what a chest breath looks like. Now, you can see the difference. The breath is originating into the chest. Now, if we're breathing into our chest, imagine how much space we're missing. Imagine how much less oxygen we're not taking in because we're shortening our breath to only here to here versus all the way down here to all the way up to the top of the head. So now let's break the breath into 3 parts. We're going to start with the belly, and I want you guys to practice along with me as I do this here. We're going to place our hands on our belly here. We're going to breathe in through our nose. And I want you to close your eyes because it's really going to help with the imagination aspect to this technique. So with your eyes closed, I want you to breathe in through your nose. I want you to imagine the air almost like a stream where you can visually see it. Do you know like when you're testing a car's aerodynamics and it's in a wind tunnel and you can see the stream of air going over the body of the car? I want you to imagine that when you're breathing in through your nose, you can kind of see this transparent stream that's flowing into each nostril. That air is going to go in the nose, and it's going to be followed from the nose to the back of the throat. You're then going to follow that air down through your throat into the base of your lungs where your diaphragm is sitting, and you're going to fill the base of your lungs up first. So let's do a couple of these right now. Now you should be, again, 25% of your breath. I'm not asking you to take full breaths here. I'm just asking you to take a very short breath, enough for your belly to rise. And start to feel how your belly's rising. Your belly's extending out, not because you're pushing it out, but because naturally you're bringing air to the base of your lungs and it's causing the diaphragm and the lungs to expand out. Okay, so after a couple of those, we're going to then move from the belly to our chest. So now we have to imagine that the base of the lungs have filled up with the maximum amount of air that they can handle. And it's almost as if the air has no choice but to go up. So you're going to fill the base of the lungs up until you feel like the air has no choice but to start to rise upwards into the chest. And in order for you to do this, guys, you have to breathe a little bit slower. You have to slow down your breath and really follow it through the nose into the base of the lungs, into the chest. So I'm going to demonstrate one if you guys want to watch how this looks in my body here. I'm going to hand on the belly. Slow the breath down into the belly. Once it reaches the belly, it has no choice but to start rising into the chest. So I just did 2 right there, and what did you notice with my body? a natural lift started to happen because the breath started to decompress my spine and lift me up from the inside out. Now, this is big for people who always want to correct their posture, where they always feel like they're slouching and they want to try to sit up straight. It's never about trying to fix yourself from the outside in. It's always about cueing your breath to lift you into alignment and then maintaining the space that you create with your breath. And that's exactly what we're doing here. So now we're going to practice this, guys, following the breath. We're going to do about 5 to 10 of these together. Follow the breath through the nose, into the throat, base of the lungs until it has no choice but to rise into the chest. So we're going to start now. Eyes closed, taking a deep breath in. And feel that lifting effect. And when I'm doing it, I can almost feel my body wanting to rotate back and forth just a little bit, like it's shimmying up to the top of my chest. Feeling my body lifting, and it drops almost into extension as well. And I'm just talking so as you guys are going through it, you can hear what I'm subtly cueing so you can follow the cues and start to experience what I'm experiencing with this type of breathing. Breathing into the belly, rising it into the chest and almost lifting into a slight extension of your thoracic cage, opening up your chest just a little bit, and then exhaling. After a couple of those, we're going to reset and we're going to bring the breath to the top of the head now. Now, this is going to be the third part of our breath. We did the belly, we did the chest, now we're bringing it to the top of the head. And I think this is where the imagination has to really kick in, because when we're talking about bringing the air to the top of the head, our lungs are nowhere near our head. So what I'm essentially saying to you is, how can we send the breath to the top of the head? How can we imagine breathing in air, letting that air flow, and sending the air to the top of our head? And I'm going to show you what that looks like here, but I'm going to exaggerate my breath by doing a specific technique called ujjayi breathing. We're going to get into what ujjayi breathing is into later episodes, but essentially I'm going to breathe and restrict the air in the back of my throat so you can hear my inhale a little bit better. So that way you can follow along as I'm taking the breath in. Right to the top of the head, and exhaling. So I'm going to do another one with that ujjayi breathing technique. To my belly. To my chest. To the top of the head. Exhaling. So another way to visualize this, if you guys are having a hard time, is to imagine the breath like a wave. And you know when a wave starts to get its momentum, it's starting to build, and as it's building, it's getting taller and taller, and then when it crashes down, it pours onto the shore. So it's the same thing. We're originating the breath in our belly. The breath is coming from our belly, crashing into our chest, and then it's pouring up into the top of our head before we exhale, and it retracts back down. And then we're kind of maintaining that wave-like pattern. So the breath's coming like this. The best part about breathwork is that you're never without the two things needed to have a successful breathing experience. The first thing is your breath. The second thing is your attention. You always have those two things. It's about prioritizing your attention onto what you always already have, which is your breath. And you'll notice that when you do this, you start to feel more stable in your life because you see and become more attentive to the fact that you are never without these two things. You always have attention and you always have your breath. And when you always have something, is that not the most reliable thing in the entire world? It will always be there for you. So just prioritize it a little bit throughout your day. And this is how you can do it in a seated position, a lying down position, and a standing up position. So let's get right into it.